South Carolina State Senator Mike Reichenbach gave a legislative update on his 18 days in the Senate to the Florence Rotary Club at Victor's in downtown Florence.
And I'm asked to give a legislative update and to talk about what it's been like since winning that seat at the end of March. But instead of kind of the normal or proverbial update of we passed this bill, we passed that bill, we passed that, you can read that. You can find that online or in any number of publications. What I find most people are interested in is kind of like the look behind the scenes. Not just what time it is, but how do you make a clock, or how do you make the sausage, so to speak. And I was saying, the 18 days that I've been in the Senate session, it's been a whirlwind. That old proverb about drinking from a fire hose it rings true. And Gene, I'll tell you, being the wife of the state senator for 41 years, it's unimaginable what you all went through, and it's great. I'm grateful for that. So the 18 days that I've been in there, it's been incredible. My first day, there was really not a time to really walk or ease into it. It was simply a function of you get in, you sit down, you buckle up, and you get ready to go. And one of the big questions I'm usually asked, what surprised you the most in your 18 days of being in there? And I will say unequivocally, it's that it's not as easy as I thought from the standpoint of the Republicans have control of the state. There are 124 state representatives and 80 of them are Republicans, so right at 65%. There's 46 state senators and 30 of them are Republicans, and again, 65%. And we've got obviously a Republican governor. So you've got one seat away from supermajority Republicans in both the House and the Senate and a Republican governor. But the amount of challenges and the amount of conversations is largely predicated on issues within the party, trying to figure things out. One of the best examples of that, when we were doing the budget, I-73. I-73 became a colossal issue. Largely, it all had to do with the money, right? Follow the money. There's $330 million that the delegation from the Grand Strand had wanted from the state for I-73. That was to match federal funds and local funds there to come up with their $1 billion. And the current chairman of the Senate Finance Committee had earmarked that $330 million to be part of the $1 billion in tax rebate that he wanted the state to do in terms of as far as his first budget. So it wasn't hours long, it was days long debate about what we were going to do with that $330 million. It got to the point where a couple senators from the Grand Strand delegation had made their final pitch to the rest of the senators. And they went to the well, to the podium there, and the statement was similar to this. We're all senators and we're all South Carolinians. We're asking you to look at the greater good here, and instead of that rebate of $1 billion going to the taxpayers where they'll get the check, they'll cash the check, they'll forget about it a week later. Maybe put a few tanks of gas in their car, go out to dinner, see a movie, but they'll forget about it. I-73 would make a real impact to the Grand Strand and to the rest of the state. So their pitch was to take that $330 million and instead of it going into the rebate, take that entire $1 billion, of which that $333 million was a third, and they were going to split it up, $7.5 million per senator for infrastructure projects in their district, and then another $7.5 million for a project a senator wants to do in the area, a number of projects. And the goal of that was, if you're in a poorer county, $7.5 million plus another $7.5 million goes a long way. Maybe not as much in Charleston County or Lexington County, but you put that in Marion, in Florence, in Hampton, Jasper, $15 million goes a long way. So the amendment after amendment was made. Ultimately, although it was very, very tense, the Finance Committee and the chairman of the Finance Committee, they had their way, and we voted for the $1 billion to go into a rebate plus the $1 billion in tax cuts. So essentially, the $330 million for I-73 didn't happen. because of the infighting really within the party on where it was going to go. And when you'd have the one-on-one conversations in the upstate and in the Midlands and in the Low Country, their point was real salient. We'd love I-73 to go into Grand Strand, but we're not paying for it. We got malfunction junction in the Midlands. We have issues in the upstate. Many of them got to the well and said, okay, blindfold somebody in North Carolina and have them drive south on 95. They can almost tell you when they got to the border of South Carolina with the road conditions. And then give them about 3 hours and they can almost tell you within a mile or two when they cross over into Georgia. So the point wasn't that I-73 is not a good idea. The point is that's $330 million that if you think you're going to get it for a new highway, let's use it for an existing highway. So those kind of debates, sitting back and watching that was almost surreal because we spent days in a pro-business world, in a for-profit, even not-for-profit, speed, engagement, effectiveness. How quickly you go from here to here matters. And that was really a function of, we took days debating one particular topic. Another good example of that where the challenges within party became a real big deal was on the election integrity bill. Again, 65% Republican in both chambers there. So you'd say to yourself, well, why would there be such an issue with the election integrity bill? And that really came down to power. Maybe some of you read about this. The governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, we all kind of had a template of what we wanted that election integrity bill to look like. But ultimately, when the bill came from the House to the Senate, there were a certain number of senators who said, you know, everything looks great, except for one clause here. The current State Elections Commission are all appointees of the governor. And there were some real challenges in 2020 with the election and some of the things that the State Elections Commission did or didn't do, depending upon how you look at it. And the amendment was added onto the bill, kind of in the 11th hour, to say, everything looks great, but now we want the Senate to have advice and consent on the Elections Commission, the State Elections Commission. That did not go over well. And it almost felt like an episode of Madam Secretary or House of Cards or fill in the blank there. We're sitting in there and your phone starts chiming and it's this particular person from the governor's office and this person from the speaker's office, and then people are getting called out into the lobby or into what they call the cloakroom. And what it came down to is that the governor was clear, you're not touching my elections commission. Those are my appointees. And it is a power grab for the Senate to then say, I can nominate them, but the Senate gets to appoint them with advice and consent. So it was an incredibly tense several hours there where the governor's office aligned with the speaker and the House, and it really had little to do with whether we felt an election integrity bill to make things, voting easier, to extend the period of absentee voting. A lot of good things in there. What it came down to is even the House took the position of, let me get this straight, the Senate thinks they should have advice and consent, but they don't think the Senate and the House should do it together. And I had a couple of state reps call me out and say, like, you know what, it's that kind of hubris that is why we're not going to support it. And that's an exact quote. Had the Senate said, okay, the Senate and the House confirm it, would have been an easier sell for the House, but the House, did not like that, and ultimately, the advice and consent of the Election Commission being added to the bill as an amendment did not pass as a part of it there. And it would have been a real sad day that we wouldn't have made voting easier. And the adage that we like to say is, easy to vote, hard to cheat. And this bill was going to do that, but it failed. And